by the end of today, all of you do have at least one instance in the cloud that you can log into. Right? It doesn't matter that so you have an instance, right? And you can leave it running for the remainder of the course and then take it down after, right? It doesn't cost you a lot. You're still in a free tier. Yeah. So that's the base. So we can start from there. So you have a compute server at your disposal with a public-facing IP, and some of you have attached your personal domains to this IP. That's fine. And you have been able to set up a home page, right, from the machine. Now, the problem is we're hugely underutilizing the Abby? Yeah. Hi. Yeah. So hugely underutilizing what we've got, right? This is a compute server sitting there, and it's actually capable of doing a lot of stuff, and all it's doing is serving a static HTML page. You might as well just put it in a bucket somewhere and say, hey, anyone who comes asking, you say, don't have to fire up an instance to go and, waste compute cycles and read the file and serve it. So they might as well just, point the person at me, hey, you know what, did you want something? You guys like, yeah, it's in that bucket, go and get it, right? So that's what you want to say, right? So I think that's the whole idea behind an S3 bucket. And I honestly, I haven't used it a great deal, except for, I thought for a little while that maybe it's going to be cheaper than, saving my stuff elsewhere. But it's, ultimately your decision, just what you choose to do. But all it gives you is really some storage space in the cloud, just like Dropbox, right? And then you only pay for how much you use, and it's actually very economical. So and one of the main reasons I use S3 is really, I think lately, when I've been playing around with Lambdas, for instance, so you write the code for Lambda and package it up, and that package, like a container, freely, right? It's a Lambda container with code inside and with all the environment set up this way, right? So that has to be placed in an S3 bucket in order for CloudFormation to automatically find it there. And I think, technically, if you think about it, you can think of CloudFormation as a way in which they say, I don't care where you store your Lambda, just give us a way to authenticate and know that it is you. And then we'll just pick up your code from there. As long as we have the trust established, that's fine, right? But I think that's more of a headache to get that going. And why would you do that when S3 is cheaper than what you can do yourself, right? So I think that's good homework to actually look at how much you would pay for S3. And in fact, if you're just storing little YAML files and little pieces of code and even lambdas, right? Which may be like, I don't know, maybe up to without the libraries and all, right? So maybe up to 100 kilobytes of Python code or JS code. I don't know. So those are, I don't know. I think they would be like microservices. Hi, Alex. Hi. What is your name? Alex. Alex, were you here first class?
I was here first.
But you weren't here last class, right? Yeah. Okay. And you were sitting actually you were sitting there. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. So yeah, we're talking about S3, and so anyway, I'm thinking, forget about all that, so I'm basically saying that what we'll do is we'll just create a file on S3, index.html, put it there, and say, I don't want to waste any compute servers, and say, I get a domain name with it. You can CNAME it to whatever you want, but you do get a place where you want to serve static content. Jimmy?
Yeah, if my virtual machine is attacked by a virus and Amazon is not passing on to update the OS with patches, is Amazon responsible there?
Actually, you're asking the wrong person about that. If I was on Amazon, and so I can say that if I was Amazon, what I would do, right? I mean, they might have other constraints in place. So I would say, you asked us for something, and we told you this is exactly what we have, and you took it from us. And then you knew what you got from us, and you didn't protect yourself. And then if you got your ass kicked, then we're not responsible for it, right? So at the best, what I would do is, I'll give you everything you want, but I'll make sure that you don't, if something bad happens to you, it stays within your universe. It doesn't affect another person's universe. And I think that you would expect the same thing of me, right? And I think that is the mindset with which Amazon looks at this problem. And thinking like a customer. I think that's basically what thinking like a customer is. And I think they do a very good job at it. So, So from that perspective, I think, I think that if you get hacked, and with an Amazon instance, I think it would be very unfair to blame Amazon for it. Oh, I'm so sorry. What the hell was I talking about? I'm so sorry, Jimmy. I got completely.
S3 and putting the file.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so what we'll do is, maybe you spend a half hour or something, just set up an S3 bucket, So create an index.html file and serve a static HTML, and I'll show you how to get the URL, and then we'll just rename it to something if you have a domain, and you're ready to go, right? So we can get that up and going, and I think we'll do what Monica just did. So I'll do that. I'll do the whole thing, right, from start to finish, very quickly, and then one of you can do it. And then I walk you through it with your computer connected to the screen, and then we'll actually report that too. And then maybe you share that with the online students and say, hey, this is cool. This is what we did in class, or something like that. And so we can get that going. And so the other track is having WordPress up and going, right? And I think that's very cool because lots of people want to do that. So if you have content, you want to share it, and a great way to do it is through a public service. Now, I think WordPress.com itself, is it com or .org? I don't know. Maybe I can't find it. It's like $5 a month. But it is something that you have to remember because you know that if you something happened to you and you forgot to pay for 2 years, and then you come back and your account is gone. Yes. I don't know that worry at the back of the head, that shouldn't be there. So I think lots of people would rather basically, get a lifetime supply of EC2 or some good server, and just get something like, pseudo permanent storage like S3, or not EC2, EBS back, and put the data there, and that's it. It's there. Anyway, once it's online, it's immortal, right? Pretty much. Anyway, all right. So let's go through what I will do. I'll just go ahead and create an S3 instance. Hi. What is your? You were here the first class, and then you were not here the class after, right?
Yes.
Yes. Hang on. Sato. Sitara. Hi. All right. And Melanie, right? Yeah, I don't know. Last time you guys introduced us on the question before. Okay. All right. So all right. While it's waiting, while it's warming up, let me pull this up. Okay, so we'll open a brand new tab. Boom. You know what? So I'll just go through this and I'll talk through this and also take that opportunity to record it for our online students. The screenshot, screen recording. And try. Is this talk QuickTime? QuickTime and record, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll try that. have to excuse me, my cold still hasn't completely left me, I think. That's okay, yeah, I think I've got it, don't worry. So, yeah, quick time, right?
USB-C. Sorry.
All right, so, you know, might as well put full screen and then afterwards.
You don't want to shut it off.
Okay. And by the way, sorry to our online students, we tried our best to get Zoom going, but we couldn't. We'll try and figure out another way next class on. All right, so I'm recording the screen, so as it's being demoed to the rest of my class. So what do we want to do? We create an S3 bucket. Okay, so let me go ahead and log in. All right, so it's just going to go into my Amazon account. So let's go in services, S3. Okay, so just going to go to services, S3, create a bucket, give it a, it's very important that you give it a DNS compliant name because it's going to use that use that name to generate your URL for you. So that URL will be publicly accessible. I mean, you can make it publicly accessible if you want. You can protect it with an HTTPS certificate or something like that, but essentially you get a public URL. So it has to be a globally unique name, just like, you know, a DNS name that you get. And it also turns out it's important the region in which you pick the bucket. So typically, if you want to avoid cross-region traffic, which is the only thing that Amazon builds you for, I might be wrong. I need to verify that. Right? So you want to pick a bucket in the same region as most of your users are, or yeah.
I learned the hard way that if you don't use Amazon Linux, you're charged.
All
I
right.
picked up a $5 bill last week.
Okay. All right. So let's try and go to US West. I think West should get it right. Hang on. Oh. Region West.
Can't you go
Where's US West?
US space West, I should pick it up.
Oh, North Carolina. I was looking for US West 2. Why was I looking for US West 2? It's funny. Okay. All right. So let me see. All right. And let me give it a name. Let me call it CS 55 A dash. I'm pretty sure I'm going to add with a dollar for it, right? So because it has to be DNS name. So no. Okay, so it just needs to end with it. So yeah, end with. Okay, CS55 dot what shall I call it? Test dash bucket. Now, what's the issue here?
Anand,
Yeah.
would you mind increasing the font, please?
I'm sorry. Hang on, just give me 1 second. Should I just do that like this, or
That's great. Thank you.
is that better?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, Eric. Okay, alright, so, what's the name, what is it that it disobeys? What naming rule that, okay, it needs to be unique. Alright, okay, what did I want to call it? Maybe it's already created an account. CS55A underscore. No, cannot have. Okay. Okay. What is it? Test. Okay. All right. So if it's a bucket in which you put your own personal items in, I would say okay, yeah, versioning is okay. I think it's very risky to turn on versioning for any content that is auto-generated. Because what happens is that once you say you turn on versioning, I don't know, it's not like, it's not the intelligent versioning like we have in Unix and source code control systems, right? So it stores only diffs. So I think what happens is that every time you store an object, even if a few bytes are different, if the hash is different, it's going to store an entire new object on top of that. So the entire storage is replicated. And I don't know what the exact technology behind the access method for the objects in your bucket. But I bet that even if it's a hash, it starts slowing down right after you've got 1 billion items in it or something like that, without knowing, right? So you might have ABC, the item object called ABC in that bucket, version null or current version, right? And then underneath that, you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to trillions. And each one of those is an object which is actually individually accessible to you as the user, as the owner of the bucket, right? So I could say, give me ABC version 942 billion, right? And it would actually give me that particular, and that incredible power comes at the cost of incredible redundancy, right? So I think we can do our bit to minimize that and only turn on. I think that's one of the things I mean when I say anybody can become a cloud architect, but to become a real cloud person, you need to think like a cloud. Just like, to be a computer scientist, you gotta think like a computer and say, well, hey, is that the best possible way I can do that, right? Because if it's not the best possible way, I want to find the best possible way, right? So I don't know, so when you think like a cloud, you say, well, all of that junk accumulating in there, and I know the probability of any of those being accessed is close to 0. It's all just junk, right? So I want to minimize that. So, and I think a good architect knows where to say, all right, that needs versioning, and that does not need versioning. Rather than saying, hey, that's a really cool feature, and just because Amazon's magic makes it all invisible to you, you say, yeah, I want versioning, and without actually knowing the underlying cost of it. I think that's my perspective anyway, right? So. Anyway, so I'm going to say no. Even though it's an experimental, it's a personal. It's not an automatically full bucket. I want to not have version here, and I don't want to server access logging either, which is really cool because you could have an index HTML file, and then you could turn on your access log, which in fact was one of the other interesting projects I had in mind for today. Well, if not, I'll turn it into a next class or something like that. It's going to be interesting and fun at the same time. Because that will require you to that will require you to cross, to hit the edge of S3's capacity, right? The S3 says I can give you infinite storage, no problem. But if you want any computing, that's not me. Right? So it knows what it's capable of, and it also knows what it's incapable of. So I can think of it that way, right? So it tells you. So I think that if you just want storage, just go for S3, and if you want computing, all right. So S3 is absolutely not. I just take an EC2 instance, but automatically it comes to 8 gig of RAM, 8 gig of solid state, storage on it, which is I still carry on, with me like a 2 gig stick or something like that, on which my entire life can be, condensed. And, all right. So, anyway, so we'll just go through this. All right, so I'm going to block all public access to this site. Where's my water, by the way? Yeah, Monica.
So I think
all right, my bucket's bleeding.
I was gonna say
Sorry, yeah.
there were a couple of fields beneath that.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if we're gonna add tags to it or if we need to take on any boxes like object level logging or default encryption.
Oh, yeah, I'll go over those,
can go over
those
those
details
too.
very soon. As soon as I find my water, hang on just a second. I got a full bottle of water as I came in.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Oh, thank you, Monica. All right. All right, so here's my bucket. I see. All right, so this is the one, and whatever your concern, whatever is worrying you, should be found in one of these. All right, so what were you after? The properties or the permissions on the bucket, or what was it that you were concerned about? But you want to create a brand new one and go through the exact process.
No, I think when we were creating it, given that you're zoomed in right now, there were a couple of options that weren't captured on the screen that I'm not sure we need to.
Hang on. Okay. Let's do it. Well, I think I may need to edit some of these before I publish them anyway now, because it has information that potentially might spoil things for my other students. Yeah.
You might have discussed before, the screen in the storage there is 3 EFS, SSS, what are those like?
In the storage
In the storage?
Yeah. Oh, there's different kinds of storage?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want me to talk about it now? Do you want to save that question? Because I don't want to talk about it now. But I would absolutely love to talk about it. Even if it's outside class, I don't care, right? There's different kinds and different things for different. All right. Well, let me go through this first. All right. So I'm just going to create a bucket, brand new one. We'll just call it some random name, okay? So CS55A-1. Test that one. Oh, all right, and then we'll just say we want it in. Oh, it's a space, not a dash. Oh, geez, why couldn't I see that before? Is that all? All right. So, do you have any questions so far? It's the next screen, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So I don't want to log access to my buckets. Do you want to log access to your buckets? That's fine, we can turn on. And then what we would do is that every time someone accesses an object in that file, one of those lines which you saw on the screen last time, that HTTPD log line, it would be written to a file. And that's someone access to your index. The funny thing is, you need an S3 bucket, typically, in which that log file should go. Now, if you say that log file should go the same bucket in which all access should be logged, then it has this recursion, and then all hell breaks loose, right? So I think what I would do is basically say, I don't know, there would be a workaround for this. Maybe you cannot have, I don't know, yeah. So that would be interesting to see.
So Anand,
Yeah.
when you create an EC2 instance, don't you have some kind of storage?
Yeah. Every time you get an EC2 instance, you get a minimum, I think, of even the nano instance I fire out. I think it's 8 gigabytes of solid state storage attached to you, right? It's like your hard disk, and it's use dev SDA or some one of those devices. 8 gigs, and it's it's there until you terminate it. You can stop it; it's still there. And then I think you get charged at EBS rates, which I don't know. Yeah, honestly, I don't know if EBS is slightly more expensive than S3. I would guess it is. Yeah, because it's got to be hot. S3 doesn't have to be, I think.
So that storage is different from this S3 bucket storage, is that right?
Which one?
That storage, you're already talking about the instance?
Yeah, no, the
That's
EBS.
different storage from.
It's
the
different,
system.
yeah.
So
So
that is used for computational purposes usually?
yeah, it's more, I think it's more warm. It's
Right,
more
so
warm.
This S3 is more of storage.
Yeah.
Archiving purposes.
No, so archiving, there's different levels of archiving, right?
But it's
More immediate archiving. It's more on your, yeah. It's basically a hard disk in the cloud. So I think that's the way to think of it, S3. Because in S3, I think originally, I think 7 years ago or 10, I think S3 only used to stand for those object storage. And now they have different classes of S3. So within S3 they have, standard storage, which is what, typically S3 is. And then they have different grades of, not data degradation, but it's just latency in accessing the first time or something like that. So it gets frozen more and more. Finally, it becomes, I think, what's called glacier. And I think at that point, your data still hasn't vanished, but they basically, I think what they mean is that they put it in a vault somewhere in Finland and forget about it. Until you really pay to get it. No, it's even then access is very cheap. So I'm just surprised. I think you're.
And also after that, then there's other things that follow.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Monica, for keeping me on the. All right. So what do we do? Sorry. So we don't want to. Okay. All right. Here. What is this? Do you want to know what this is?
Yeah, we don't have to click that, right?
Yeah, you don't have to, because what it's basically, it basically says, it's different ways in which you can, leave a trail of, who's accessing it. I haven't looked in great detail. I think you have some basic level of that free. We'll get into that later. I don't know. Okay, all right. All right, so I want to create a public website. So I will basically say, uncheck my logs. So it's a blog public. And then I say, okay. Now at this point, my bucket is being created, and where is this the one that I just created or the one that I created? It doesn't really matter. Oh, yeah, can't be public. This is one, right? So, all right. So it says, upload new objects to get started. But if I go to, properties, server access. Okay, so this is so funny this happens, right? Because I changed the font size and everything. What I used to expect to see there is not here, and I think it's not there at all. Alright, so I'm going to say I'm going to use this bucket to host a website, and then say my document. So you can basically say that if you don't have anything in the bucket, stitch together. You can do that bandit thing that Apache does, right? So you can create some file. But I'll just say index.html.
Can you go back at, I kind of.
Sorry, go ahead. Where?
Properties.
Oh, you're trying to do this now?
Oh, yeah, I'm just trying to follow.
Oh, no, don't. So just watch now, right? Just watch now.
Properties.
And then maybe you can come and do it here. And then, that's fine.
I'm gonna go to static.
Yeah, don't do it now. Alright, so I'm just going to say, alright. So I'm going to say use this bucket to host a website, index.html. I'm just going to say, alright, that is basically it at this point, I think we're, so if I click that, it says this is the endpoint I get. Now, obviously, I'm free to take that, nice one. I'm free to take that and go to GoDaddy, and copy. Hang on. This is copy link, I think. Oops, sorry, I got a selection. Jeez. Okay, well, basically that is thing, that thing there. All right, so I can CNAME it, right? So I can basically store my cool daily picture, right? My cool daily photo.com or something. You can actually get an S3 bucket, with that name. And then all you do is that every day you just update, a photo.jpg, and photo.jpg is uploaded from your phone, right? Wherever you are at 6 p.m. Right? And so there you go. That's pretty cool. It's a hero photographer. And so you can see name to it. But now you see that if I go to that site, let's say go, it says forbidden. So what I need to do now is basically there's two things I need to do. So let me go back here. What I need to do is first I need to create an index.html file because my bucket at this point is actually empty. Right? So if I go. Alright, so my bucket is empty. So what I need to do is I'm going to put some stuff in there. So let me fire up tested. Alright, desktop. I'm just going to create a file here. Again, new document. Let me say, alright. There's no ordinary text format. Or maybe I need to set it to.
There's a web page.
There's a web page option.
There you go. I think that might do it. Huh? Yeah. Because I just want a text file. I just want an index.html. I could actually have created that using Emacs, but this, So just say on the desktop index. Oh, geez, okay. I just must have looked wrong. Okay, so so here's what we got to try something out. I'm going to drag and drop and try and rename the object here. So let's see if that works. I don't even say that. It's not even configured to show any extension. So it's just TXT. Let me see if there's a way for me to rename this. Otherwise, can someone look up? Is it possible to rename S3 objects? We just Google it, you might find it. I've never tried it. So the other alternative is of course to.
Yes, it says there was a. Oh, no, sorry, yes.
There is a way?
Yes, there's no option.
Oh, there is no way? That's good.
Weird.
Well, I guess it makes
So
sense.
there's no
Yeah, that's right. Version controls us, but it should have maybe just
Are you saying there is no way you can probably do SCP from your device?
I see, that's the problem with GUIs. Sometimes, geez, thank you so much, Dad, okay? So I just need to go, All right, so what is the next action? So there you go. Okay. So that's what, quick text or what is it? Texter was trying to tell me from day one, saying, "Do you want me to change this .html?" So many times, and I said, "No, you times. I want to do my way." All right. So I'll just drag that and drop it here. All right. So now at this point in time, I think if I click on this file and make sure that its own properties, make sure that its own properties. Upload. Let me fill that. All right, upload that. Okay. And you have to say that every document, everything you download into the cloud by default, Amazon, I think it's a case of all the companies, right? So eating their own dog food or whatever they call it. So saying, well, as a good society, you give the least amount of privileges to everyone. And here too, when you publish any app into your cloud, it forces you to consider consciously who you are allowing to access that object. So by default, everything you put into your public store is made, more from zero. It's on. So I think we'll make it public, and so it's now public. And at this point, I think we should be able to go here and refresh, and it's a translate.
Click options, I think options will.
No, but why did you think this needed translation?
Good question. If you click options, I think
Maybe the
you can never translate that again.
Yeah. Oh, maybe it's just a text file and they looking for XML, some crazy XML text. I don't know.
I thought your original file had that character.
Yeah, but I don't know why Google Chrome was suggesting that we
How do you make that public? I'm kind of lost. How do you
Hmm?
make that public?
Oh, alright. Anyway, so that's it. That's basically how it's about 40 minutes, right? Let me stop this. So I'm also mindful of was it running at all? Yeah, it doesn't seem to have. Design and cursor run with it right now.
You just quit that player, it'll start recording.
Oh, it actually does say. Okay, all right. So yeah, that's about 40 minutes since we started. So, but there was quite a bit of talking involved doing this setup. So I think it's like a 5-minute thing, honestly.
So if you just want to create web server, you just create a bucket. You don't need to create an EC2 instance.
Yeah, I would. The thing is, but today I'm hoping is that you'll see the limit of what you can do, because there's something that you're going to try and do today, which I think will fold into your quest number 2, which will actually require you to do some computation, and S3 will not be able to do that. So if you access storage,
You can just access the storage. You can just see what is happening here.
yeah, it gives you storage that's accessible across the region.
So are you saying then, if you're gonna make a web app, you're usually gonna use your
You can make a web app as long
You have file
as
structure in this.
you can have a rich app too.
In S3.
In S3, yeah. As long as
Then what changes?
oh, so what you
What would
lose?
you like
What you
to
lose?
do?
Yeah. So what do you lose? You're saying, right? What can you have? So when you have a rich app in S3, you're not really computing anything for the user. You're allowing the client to do everything. So it's like this Google Apps was hosted on S3. That's almost impossible, because the only way they would be able to do it is if the client's machine stored all of the data, and Google interface only supplied the JavaScript.
Okay, so that's, okay, good point. So I'm gonna make a web application, I need a file structure that's gonna support that. JS, CSS, everything to make a web app.
Okay.
What I choose,
Oh,
S3 is just not the place to go. EC.
Yeah.
EC2 is the way I want to,
Okay.
file structure.
If you have PHP, I don't think you have a choice. You have to go with EC2, okay, right? Because I mean, although you should be able to package all of that into a Lambda, and say I don't even want an EC2. So every time someone calls this S3 bucket, just fire off this Lambda as a random instance.
So what's convention? What's convention?
I think the convention is going to change. I mean, I think eventually everything will be lambdafied. I think that's why S3 is good to use as a resource, but I think it's not an endpoint in itself. It's just a really good resource. And just like EC2, I think.
Well, my EC2 instance can be referred to the S3 instance.
Yeah. Your S3 can be globally. That's why you have this globally unique name. Yeah, you can choose, and then you can set access policies on your bucket, which we didn't go into, right? I mean, I'm not an expert in that either. So you can set access policies that are extremely selective, and say only these people are able to access the content of this bucket. So all of that, I mean, some expert in that area would be able to say, they'd be able to sift the needle in a haystack, right? So, but it's possible. It definitely is possible. Yeah, and then I think PHP, even if it's PHP, in the language of your choice. I think there is a PHP engine for all that. I think PHP didn't used to exist. They had Python and Node.js. as far as I know. And then I wasn't as good in either of those.
Well, I know when you pick your EC2 instance, or not the instance, but the actual image of the machine or whatever you call it. The second one has all the languages, has PHP, Python, Node, and the first one doesn't for some reason. You know, the things you get, sorry, I don't know terminology.
I see. So
When
the
you
first
set
one
up
is
your
your bare
Linux-
metals.
When you
Bare
set up
metals.
your Linux machine, it gives you this, second
Yeah,
one
yeah,
has
yeah.
all the
With all the
languages,
basic packages.
and they're-
Because one of the exercises I had for this class was to just basically go through the whole process of setting up a WordPress site on an Amazon instance. So you basically fire it up today, and then kill it in an hour. That's like 1.2 cents, right? And it actually tells you. So I think when you go through the process of setting up WordPress. So I tried to do this afternoon. I decided, okay, so there should be multiple options. There should be setting up an S3 bucket, like I've done. Someone's welcome to do it too, and I can walk through it. Or they should, take their instance from last class and try to get, WordPress going on it. So I tried to do it the way that I've always done it. And I hadn't installed WordPress in over 10 years now, I think, right? And so I said, oh, let me go back and do it. It must be much easier now. And it was actually not that much easier. And I felt that a lot of it would be overkill. But what I found was that there's an Amazon image that you can get from, who's the author of WordPress? Bitnami, right? So you can actually get a free image from Bitnami, which has WordPress and MySQL and WordPress configured for, see, the way that WordPress works is that, hey, John, I never actually got your email, so I wanted to, all right, we'll talk later. All right, so WordPress, the way that it works is basically just, you can create a user. You can say, I'm a user, I'm a publisher, I'm a writer, right? So you can go create an account and you start blogging. And you can create these users. And it stores all this information in directories and folders, and it stores these links in a database. And then it uses MySQL in the background to do that. So in order to get WordPress going, you've got to get MySQL going. Right? So I said, okay, MySQL it's interesting. So I haven't installed MySQL in ages too. Right? So I went ahead and tried to install. This must be much easier now to install MySQL. And it's not much easier. Right? It's still just as hard, but it's easy if you know what to do. But so
I had to get help.
right. So and then that's why I discovered that Amazon had an instance, and then lots of people have WordPress instances. So you can just download a random WordPress instance from the marketplace. Someone who you like some great artist you admire has a WordPress template. You would basically get it from that, right? So or you can just install the default one from Bitnami, and then you can spend a lot of time. I'm very reluctant to do this because I think it's very tempting once you get into WordPress territory like MySpace. So you go start there decorating and theming it. And theming it is a fun and it takes a lot of time. And I don't want that to take class time. So maybe we'll do that as a one of the exercises at home. Yeah? Okay. Okay, so that's WordPress because that's the other thing that I was planning to do. And then for the really more adventurous, or the people that are want to try and inject some programming into this and to switch S3 and say, well, I want to use the S3, the instance that I got from last class, that EC2 instance, and I want to use it to run code. I serve content that cannot possibly have come from an S3 bucket. So that's very interesting, isn't it? To actually, yeah, I think it's provable, right? So and say, I need a compute instance, and then I can show you how to, let's say, take a step towards that thing that idea that we had last time, which is to turn your server log into a song, right? So we get the last 1,000 lines or something, and then each pattern we match to a note. And then I was Googling around for the web sound API, or something like that. Right? And I found some really good hits. So we can use that, and I can write up some hooks for you. I can just wire it up for you, so you don't have to do much JavaScript. So just put in more than HTML. That'd be cool because what we do is I think we just produce a little folder, Serversong.zip or Serversong.tar. And all that sysadmin has to do is to grab that folder, put it in their Docker root, and unzip it. Okay? And from that point onwards, anyone that goes into that folder would fire off the PHP script. That PHP script, which would read their access log and translate the last 1,000 lines into, some series of numbers, and sends them back. And the rest of the stuff is done by the JavaScript, right? It would just interpret these numbers as musical notes, and then use the web sound API to play notes. So that's all, right? So it's just a very simple server app, and then we can put it together. And there is no way that could happen using this S3. Well, actually, I don't know how much of that is actually possible, but I think it's quite possible, right? I don't see any obvious problems with what I described. But if not, I'll discover it very soon, right? So hopefully not. But even then, even if that doesn't work, I think we have an interesting quest for us to make something like that. Okay, so those are the things that we'll do. So, do we have any volunteers? Does someone want to come up to connect up the laptop? Just create a random S3 bucket, put some content in it, and then hit the web server. And even cooler, if you can see name, if you have it, goadby.com or what is it? You had some domain.
Yeah.
Yeah, abysomething.com, right?
AbbyGrossman.com.
Abby Grossman, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, all right. Oh, so you actually got your first class name in the, that's very nice.
I had some files left over from an HTML class I took a while ago, so I just cut and pasted an unfunctional web page that had all the header and, so I have decent HTML. When I finish the homework assignment, I'll actually put something in there that doesn't look like it, that doesn't have broken images. Because I think I still have a day or two on that.
Yeah, I think it was interesting that the website was available. So.
Yeah, it took it a while, like at the beginning of class, it didn't, but by the time class ended, it was pointing correctly.
All right, so anyway, so you have a domain of your own and you want to think that's your S3 bucket. You can actually, so here's an interesting exercise. You can calculate the difference in cost. Now forget that you were in the free tier. Assume that you were actually paying for it, right? For a whole year. Assume that you're paying for an EC2 instance for a whole year. Let's get the cheapest possible EC2 instance, right? And you're paying for a whole year just to serve your index.html. And see how much it will cost you to serve the same content on S3. Right, so those are things that will try and, that will help us make these decisions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So my instance is pointing by default to the East Coast area.
Yeah, mine too. Why did yours?
So my question is, if I select for my S3 when I created it pointing to the West Coast?
No, everything that we do here, your bucket is an S3 in the West Coast, right? So everything we do here is going to be written within the region. Now your instances, yeah. So if you can create your buckets within the California region, you're fine.
Okay, so I'm just saying, if it's S3 is in the West Coast, then
No, but you know what? So for this, I don't know why. My first instance was started in the East Coast. And I've been paying, I've been paying extra. Like, you subscribe to some silly service on the phone and then you don't discover it for some 7 years later.
can
Like,
we switch it? Do you think we could switch the resource?
I don't know.
I was afraid that it's gonna.
It's not my personal account. I mean, I just started this for Foothill. But I don't know why I started it in the East Coast, so.
Okay, a couple of questions about the S3 bucket you just set up. So you opened up text edit and then you saved, that one sentence you put on there and then you uploaded it back to your bucket. And
Yeah.
you saved it with the HTML index.
Yeah. You can save it with any index you want, any name you want, but in the S3 bucket, where it says, if you don't find anything in the bucket, anything else specific that the user asked for, serve this content. Where is that? There's a web thing here.
So wouldn't that be under the instance or the storage?
No, for this bucket. Hang on, over here. Okay, so that's the object that we put in. And then if you didn't supply the index.html, we will tack it onto it. And if you did, by default,
Also by default, it has HTML in it.
yeah.
And then.
But why is it not, where's the
It's under
HTML
the
part?
bucket, it's under the bucket, not the test file. Not under, yeah.
Oh, no, I was looking at the individual file. Yeah, all right, thank you. Hmm?
Got it, and then does it have to be a text edit file, or maybe say Word?
No, you can, so here. Are we recording? I don't know. Oh my gosh, I think I stopped recording, but never mind. Hey, Larry, are you, I don't know, you guys taking notes?
kinda like following
Yeah,
along.
okay, all right, because I don't know.
No worries.
Okay, so index dot, desktop. So there you go. This is it's basically a text file. It doesn't have anything else in it. So you can call it whatever you want. Let's call it something else. Let's call it mon.html, right? Monica.html. All right. So let's call it. Okay. All right, so if I can go back to this bucket here, and hang on, I should be able to tell it that if you cannot find anything, serve that file instead and upload that. So if I go to the upload section, and it does say .html, but it doesn't show it to me. Why is it not showing me the extension? All right, so here it is. And now I can go to the properties, static page, and here I can say serve. Oh, you know what? I should have saved. I should have changed. Here's another way for us to change this. So here's my terminal. All right. This is the new file. This is. Right? So I actually changed the file and I'm going to upload that. And I didn't have versioning installed. So when I don't have versioning turned on for the bucket, what happens is that every file that is uploaded to the bucket has the same version number. By default, it's null. So it'll just keep overwriting. And you don't actually pay more because it's the same, you're using the same bytes. But if I had versioning turned on, and then when I have, when I upload a new version of, index.html or monica.html or something like that, it's going to keep the old version and then give me the current version on top of that. I had a friend who used an operating system called VMS. On a fax, and he said this kind of thing was built into the operating system, Yeah, I don't know.
Last time we created our own kind of like a place to put the index.html. Can we not use? Is it possible to point to that?
Oh, so you want this to point to the index.html you created last time?
Yeah, in that.
Why do you want to go through the S3 bucket? Why don't you? What do you want? What do you want to happen? What do you want? Some random user to go to the website, right? So let's say xyz.com. So you want some person to go to xyz.com.
And the index, like let's say all your website files are already there. So why? And
Yeah. So I'm saying that you don't need it. I'm saying why waste computing?
Right.
Because most of the time your web server, even though it's serving those HTTPD is kicking in from time to time to serve those pages, most of the other time your web server is just sitting there, doing, just twiddling its fingers, right? It's a huge waste of computing resources.
So you think the bucket is less wasteful than the EC2? Are you saying that the bucket is more efficient than the EC2?
Yeah, bucket is obviously more efficient, right? Because you don't waste any computing at all. And I think lambdas are the most efficient when it comes to computing. Because now, see, imagine, 10 years ago, I had to provision 10 years worth of a computer. in order to be able to do any computing. Right? Meaning that, I invest in a computer and I need to use it for about 10 years. If I buy for a company, I expect to use it for about 10 years. Right? Eventually start up a compute server, eventually end up with someone's desktop or something like that. Right? So it's got to go through that process. So that's the kind of mentality with which we had this temporal, rigidity associated with it. And then with compute on demand, it became a lot easier, but not ideal, right? Because with compute on demand, I can say I want to buy computing by the hour, right? Or by the day, or by, or by the machine. And most of the time, like the S3 and EC2 is a classic example. Right? S3 is just, just says, you want storage, I'll give you storage, and I know how to handle it. And EC2 says, I'll do computing for you, but then you say, I want to serve content, but I'm going to use an EC2 instance to do that. And most of the time, it's not serving content, it's just sitting on its butt all the time, right? So, so you got to make that conscious choice. And I think in situations like that, S3 actually makes a lot more sense. You can actually serve a very rich app, a completely rich app. If you think about it, for the questing service that you guys are using right now, I can serve it off S3. The only reason I use an instance at all today, which I don't have to, in the near future, when I have a bit more time, is because I'm persisting some stuff, regarding your scores that you can go elsewhere to look at. Right? So, and then some authentication needs to happen, and some complex bullshit there. So, and then I need some computing. But all of that could technically just, scripted in Python or something. I can make it a Lambda. And then I don't have to pay for any EC2 instances. Now I have to have EC2 instances to come behind load balancers and create auto-scaling policies. And then, waste so much time trying to learn the intricate details of how to set each one up, just to know that, in 15 years' time, none of this, all of this is going to be history. Because, you say, I have some code to run, just run it for me. That's it. Right? Or I have some stuff to store it for me. Those are the only two commands that should be available, right? And that's the direction in which Amazon or any cloud provider, if you ask me, that's the direction in which they're going. Is to say, I'll give you these two things, these two basic building blocks, right? Using these, you can create universes. Yeah, Patty.
So would it be correct to say that EC2 is a platform as a service, and then S3 is a software as a service?
I don't know. It sounds wrong to me. I think it sounds wrong to me because, you said EC2 and storage in the same.
No, EC2 is an operating system, so that's a platform as a service.
I see.
S3 is where you have all the software already installed, so you're using that as a software.
Yeah, but why should it be software? It should just be static content, right? I can store photos. Why don't you just store random stuff?
You're installing an HTML index or HTML.
No, in this particular case, I'm just giving you an open bucket. You can start, just like, when you go to, down 101, there's all these places where you can buy these big buckets. Yes? And then they don't care what you put in it. But apparently now, my son was telling me about a series, a Netflix series in which they are trying to go into these containers and sleuthing them to find out if they're being used as living quarters by people. So they're in there and they're living in there in these containers.
So these containers have to have installed HTTP in it, or SQL Server in it.
No, you can't. So HTTP is a binary, meaning it's executable, right? Executable means it uses CPU cycles. And CPU cycles is not something that S3 is able to give you.
So the S3 bucket need to know you're passing your copies the HTML file onto S3 bucket. So S3 server needs to invoke something.
Yeah, but it's generic, meaning that don't care. You don't care. It's all abstracted away from you. It's just like object-oriented programming runs. You just it says, give me an object to store it, I will store it. Don't ask me how I do it, but I'll do it. So but if I charge you too much, then you can ask me. What the hell are you doing that costs you so much, right? So until until there's a reason, until you have that reason, you can't really ask them what they're doing.
So if we put in something like a video pictures after S3 bucket, and then if we enter those link, and then it will play those videos, right? Because it will
Yeah, totally. So it depends. I think Hitesh or someone else mentioned, Mahadesh maybe, he mentioned, that's fine, you can take a break. So you mentioned, permissions, you can restrict your permissions. So you can say, I'm going to upload a video of my, exploits in Hawaii or something like that, right? And then you say, oh, these are the people that need to have access to it. And you go and set up the access control list for that bucket. And then tell these people that, your bucket's been uploaded, updated. And they'll come and be able to look at the video. That's basically what Netflix does. I think that Netflix basically serves all its content. Yeah, I think this is what I was told. I don't know, right? But maybe they're trying to migrate in-house. But the story that I heard is that Netflix basically uses S3. That's it. All their media is on S3.
So I have my local server, local web server that I created very simple file structure, index HTML, and then there's one very simple JavaScript and some image file. I want to replicate that into my S3 bucket that I just created.
Yeah, just zip it up and
so I just try to copy that. I think one of the difficulties I'm having is that copying, it does not allow me to copy files. I try to use there's an rsync and all these.
Oh, I see. So can you not drag and drop the folder? Because where it says drag and drop files, the picture they show, the icon is not of a single file. The icon is of a folder, if I remember correctly. Right? Is it Monica? What's the icon say? The upload. The upload page of S3. Does it drag and drop the files? Does it show you a folder or a file? The blue icon.
Okay. I didn't try that, but I was kind of thinking. I was trying with the SSH through that machine.
Yeah.
To kind of.
But you can't SSH.
It says drag and drop files and folders there.
Yeah. So this is the one, right? So you're trying to SSH to that address?
Yeah.
No. You can't.
But you can do like a drag and drop. Okay.
Yeah. Drag and drop is basically. Yes, exactly. When you drag and drop, they do have listeners, but basically agnostic, many listeners floating around, someone attached, right?
Sure.
And yeah, downloads your file, uploads.
So is there any limitation with S3 if I want to dump my server code into it for it to manage or run on its own? Is there any how about JSP code, maybe?
Yeah, but so here's the thing, right? So my browser that has no idea whether the content came from S3 or EC2 or from some supercomputer. It has no idea. It just receives the HTML. So you can serve it. If you can serve something from, like I said, you can serve completely rich content that I can serve the entire thing right now from S3 because all I need to do is just zip up the. I do have a little bit of PHP, but I think I can factor that out. But all of that can basically come. Most of the computation is done by your machines. Yeah.
So if I drag and drop a zip file, will S3 know how to zip it?
No. S3 is just there's no computation built in. It just says whatever you give me, I'll store it. That's it.
So what's the?
Yeah.
Then if S3 is so much rigid in those limitations, wouldn't be the choice going right away to EC2? Because EC2 is probably overtaking S3, my understanding.
No, but they're two different battlegrounds, two different races altogether.
So is there any diagram which which describes the data flow or probably the choice.
No, I said here. I don't have a diagram, but I can paint a picture, right? EC2 is about computing. It's a computing track. It's completely different. It just does calculation. It doesn't care about storage. It gives them free storage, 8 gigabytes. Every time a machine is launched, it gets a free block device. You know, some USB thumb drive. So that's just computing, only computing. S3 is only storage. It doesn't do any computing.
So if imagine you wanna install MySQL, you will do it in S3.
It has to do a combination.
So probably you install it, and probably fill the data in S3, and then ask EC2 or configure EC2 to talk with S3.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see why that's weird. So I will paraphrase what you said. You correct me if I'm wrong. So Arafat is saying, if S3 is so cheap compared to EBS, well, let's make that assumption. Because if I get EBS, which is hot disk attached to your server, I might as well use it rather than a slightly, only warm disk attached, 1/10 the cost. S3 is, not so hot, but it's, 1/10 the cost or less of an EBS, which is really hot disk. This is what I'm thinking. Okay, I might be wrong, but I think the numbers wouldn't be far off from what I'm thinking. Right? So if I'm given a choice, I would just go for ABS all over the place. If someone says I'll give you S3 level redundancy and all of the other cool features you can listen, we'll also give it to you with EBS for exactly the same price. That's fine. I will go for EBS all the time. Right? That just happens to be cheap, so cheap because they don't have to provide that hotness, which a disk that is connected to your computer has to provide. So MySQL would be a very poor fit for a system in which the backend data store lives in a warm container, right? Like S3. Because MySQL requires a hot disk, right? Even if you have really rich memcache, right? But at bare bones, MySQL is going to write to disk and it's going to be limited by the speed at which that happens.
Are you talking about the network?
No. Forget. Once we get past the network, we're dealing with the hard disk, right? And this is MySQL trying to write to the persistence, right? That media and get data from it. It's just back and forth, and it looks at that and it is so frustrated because the channel capacity that it gets over a long pipe to S3 is so much lower. Right? Because here it's hot. The disk is hot, it can handle. It says anything you give me, I'll write it. Right? I'll give it back to you. It does that. But with S3, it has to wait a millisecond more every time it asks. Right? As for humans, it doesn't matter.
At the moment you hit the certain memory, the size of the storage is above certain threshold, you have no other choice. You need to switch to S3, right?
What do you mean?
You actually earlier mentioned there are 8 gig of storage in EC2, right? So imagine you have, let's say, a database of, let's say, 50 gig. So you have no choice. You cannot put it in.
No. You can have EBS that goes terabytes. If you want hot storage that's connected to your NoSQL, I bet that even if you do have a NoSQL database, forget MySQL, right? Because the RDBMS is just another layer, right? So let's just go. So NoSQL, which actually requires a hard disk, and a hot disk, not over S3. So if it was possible, they would essentially S3 is basically NoSQL over warm storage. I think that's a way to abstract this out. I think they're both NoSQL. So both what is their NoSQL service called? Redshift? No, I don't know. They got so many now. Dynamo. Right? So they got a NoSQL service called Dynamo. And basically what it says is that you got an object, and what we'll do is basically create a key and a key that maps. The key and the object go together all the time. So anytime you give me a key, I'll give you the corresponding object. And we'll get that really, very constant time. Basically, constant time is that's the promise. And it can go to trillions of records, and the access time doesn't get impacted. How beautiful is that, right? So it's basically an enormous hash table, but it's actually persistent to disk also at the same time. So if that level of concurrency and access is possible, it cannot be over S3. Because S3 basically says, I'll give you everything you want, but it's not going to be, maybe 10 years from now. S3 will basically be immediate hot storage too, right? But right now, I don't think it is. Right? So yeah, but that's a very good question. Because if S3 costs like 10 times less than EBS, why use EBS at all, right? You just use S3 for everything. Yeah. Jim.
I assume each bucket has a private and public IP address?
No, don't think of buckets as, even if it does have a private address, we won't know what it is. I don't think so.
Okay, but it does have a public IP address.
Yeah,
Can
and
you show us how to view it?
no, you mean the IP address. It will keep changing because it just points to a virtual DNS thing inside of Amazon. Basically, Amazon, I bet, if assuming that I was Amazon, right? So what I would do is, I would have a program listening for that address. When it comes in, it's going to virtual server. It's going to map to some algorithm and return the result. I think that's basically what's going to happen.
Can you modify S3 contents? Can you modify S3 contents?
Yeah, you can put any objects in there. And you got a bucket, right? So you
It's
put,
just the speed between EBS and the S3. Speed of accessing the data. Like, for example, like database.
Between what?
Database you want EBS, and then how about data warehouse? Data warehouse.
Oh, like Redshift and all.
S3 bucket.
I don't know the details of that. You got to look it up. I'm sorry, but it's very easy to find out, right? It's just you just go to Redshift. You go and search Google for Amazon, AWS storage services, right? The first 10 hits maybe, right? I think Redshift is their data warehousing thing, where you say pivot the table and whatever it is that you do to the data transformation. I don't know what you call the transformation, but that's it.
Do people actually use S3 instances to write, let's say, REST services where they can directly modify?
No, you can't do any computation. You cannot even run a shell
You can
script.
write to it and save the file, or modify the file.
You can do it on a local machine.
For example, the server instance is outside of the S3, and you access the S3 instance using the web link for the index HTML, and then you modify the index HTML on the server side, but it would modify the S3 instance. Is that possible?
Excuse me. No. If you modify the index.html and thereby modify the server.
No, you're not modifying the server. Can you write code to access index HTML using a?
You can view the source right now.
But
Yeah,
can you
anyone.
save any changes to it?
Hmm?
Can you save any changes on S3 using REST services?
Oh yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're basically asking, essentially, can we do the SLI, CLI, the command line? It's actually easier to create buckets using CLI. But once we get to Lambda programming and all, you'll be creating buckets left and right, right? So, but you create a bucket on a command line saying make bucket. That's it. I think AWS S3 make bucket creates a bucket for you. Here, let's try that, okay? Because my default, I think my default creds are set up for this photo class. Let me see.
Actually,
All right.
my question was, let's say if it wasn't an index.html file, a JSON file. So I want the web services to update the JSON file for me that is stored on the S3 instance. Can it be accessed?
Using
Where-
the link.
Yeah, using the link.
Yeah, you can store the JSON file there and have it accessed. But still, why would you compute the JSON file to put it
It
there?
would be on the local server. Let's say EC2 instance would call the JSON file on the S3.
Why do you need to put it on S3 when you can just put it in your document root?
Sometimes some kind of web interfaces are stored on the web where they can retrieve
So you want to use S3 as a protective layer.
something like that.
So, but why don't you just increase the firewall?
Something
Why
like
don't you increase the firewall strict security
Because
before you use it?
I'm thinking if I can use a JSON file and store it on S3 instance, then I can store a lot of customer information on S3 instance and just have my EC2 instance work as a server, access the JSON file, update the JSON file.
Oh, I see. You're saying you just want a storage space for all your data. That's basically what you're saying. You want a secure storage space for all your data, and you don't want it to be your local server B, because you'll be cloning and forking off lots and lots of them.
Yeah.
What about, for example,
Yeah, that's fine. But you know, I think what the solution you may be looking for is to just have a network drive that you can attach to these machines, rather than have them mount S3 and send it in. I don't know, it's some kind of cost and latency issue. But if I were you, what I would do is what I'm doing right now for this, right? Because every time anyone updates your Quest, I get an update, right? I get these scores and so on that I need to persist to data to disk. I write it to a cross-mounted disk. I got an EFS, which is the same as NFS. You know, those of you guys who have worked with Linux in the past, or you know, Solaris and stuff like that, you know this disk called network access, network file system, NFS, right? And within Google they have GFS. So it's basically, I don't know if it had redundancy built into it. They had maybe some. All right. So, but it was able to be mounted on multiple machines, and that was the greatest advantage, because I could write to my networked disk across a wire the same way I could write to my local disk, and which was fantastic, I think, in those days. The same as being able to access any resource with the net really. And so that's what I do. And I think if I was constrained instead to create that JSON and send it to an S3 bucket, and then have to protect it, create a new policy, a new resource. No, actually, I wouldn't do it to S3, honestly. It's just a headache. You know, it's a new resource. You're given a resource which you're underutilizing.
It would be saved on security.
Yeah, so just save it on some common resource. You should be a class variable, not an object instance variable in object speak, right? So you want a disk that is fast, and it shouldn't be S3. You can use any shared space, but it doesn't have to be low latency like S3.
Can you give me an example where S3 is very commonly used?
Yeah. Take your photos, right? Upload all your photos to S3. Or maybe upload your movies to S3 and say, you know, this is the site to which you can listen to my guitar recordings, right? You can do that. Maybe people serve, I don't know if people serve blogs from S3. That would be unrealistic, because when you serve a blog, you want to know some statistics. And it's harder to collect that from the S3 access logs.
Can you put authentication, credential authentication?
Yeah, you can do all that. Yeah, totally. You can basically say that only Mercy can read your JSON object and nobody else. You can do that too.
These are the authentication credentials that you have to set up when you set up a new bucket, is that correct? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, every time you set up a bucket, you that checkbox that we went through where it said, enable public access, and I enable public access, but if you disable public access, then you still have the option of going in and taking access policy files in there and saying, oh, I want to give access to this person, that role, or this, that or user.
So is this how Google Drive works?
Internally, I don't know how it works, but I would presume they have some equivalent, architecture. If not the same, I honestly, all of them branched off from some common technology, right? So they all have some vestiges of, that you can pick up.
So can I say, if you want to create a read-only content, use S3?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, if you have read-only content, S3 is the perfect place for it. And then you can also restrict it to say that only the people that you want to access it can access it. And you can log it, and you can audit it, and you can do anything you want. Yeah, I would use S3 for even zip files, and then, stuff from my archives that I want to come back to and analyze later on when I have time, which definitely, keeps rolling forward. So all of that, just stick on S3, and then you do all of it. I think the reason I like that is because at least you have some, you can pay, it's so cheap that you can pay for a lot of it up front, and then you can forget about it. But I don't have to worry about this for the next 20 years, right? Something like that. I think that's the ticket. Because everything else, even if you're willing to pay for 5 years at a time, well, I'm not going to pay GoDaddy like $200 for a domain name which it believes it'll go, right? But still, some things it's a reasonable price, and you'd be happy to pay for 10 or 20 years if they take it, but they won't, right? And then you have to remember, and you have to set up a bot to do it for you, and stay.
How about the difference between S3 bucket and container, Docker container?
Oh, Yeah, you can, a bucket, a nested bucket is basically just a directory, right? I mean, it's a directory inside another directory, and you can treat it like a folder, I think, mostly.
Okay.
But I think, but a Docker container is completely different, because a Docker container is almost like a CHU jail. Familiar with the, you did Linux with Mike?
No. Oh, yeah, about a year ago, yeah.
So a CHU jail is, what you do is you want users to, you want to run random content that doesn't belong to you, and you have no idea what it's going to do, but you still want to run it to see if it's right? Like for example, you guys upload your code and I run it, right? And I have no idea, you could be formatting my entire disk, right? So what I want to do is I want to run your code because I'm curious, I want to see what you guys have done, but I still want to run it within a sandbox.
What is most similar to a Docker container within the Amazon?
Yeah, so alright, okay. So what I think the most similar that I would say is not as fast as basically an AMI, which is an Amazon image. But if you have lots of other containers, I think Amazon probably has, why would they have their own standard? Because Docker is actually open standard, right? So they could support it. And they say, I give you a place to host all your Docker containers. Rather than actually have their own Docker standard, why would I spend money convincing people to use my standard when there's already a standard that everybody's using?
Got it. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. So how does this compare with Dropbox?
What compares with Dropbox? Dropbox is a second, higher level service really, because Dropbox provides all that, icing, to make it look like it's your home directory, because it does, the same with S3, but it does it all in the client and the back end, and internally it knows how to translate your stuff into its internal storage, right? I think the reason how Dropbox and all these people started is because they always just stored all of the objects by hash rather than by actual name. And the actual name was just a key in some table. So you get trillions of names, doesn't matter. But if the hash is the same, you only store one copy. And I think that's how it took off. But now I don't know. This space is so cheap that they can basically, Amazon maintains all over. I don't know if they have software that will basically stitch together a version number 4,047,000,047, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Because they have to work through all those changes.
Yeah, I'm thinking why get a Dropbox account if I can get an S3 account?
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I would get. I only use Dropbox because some other people use it. Because at some point, there's so many cloud providers, and you have to choose, right? Because you have to remember, for this I use Dropbox, for that I use Jamz. It's a real pain, right? Just like Netflix, I was telling my other class, before Netflix, I used to watch a lot of movies. Now Netflix, I never watched any movies. There's so many movies to watch, right? So, it's the same with cloud providers, right? So so Dropbox, what do I use it for? I use it for, the only reasons I use Dropbox is to share. It is for people that already use Dropbox. Other times, I store my focus stuff, Google Drive, or some random stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I try not to have a lot of stuff to say, because it's really a pain to maintain, right? Because after a while, you don't know which USB drive has what. You know what the fuck? I don't care. I just want to.
So I'm a little confused with the bucket supposed to be attached to running instances in order for it to.
No, you don't have to.
It just separate.
That's it. That's why it's so cheap.
So now that I updated that bucket, right? It has my local reference, like a reflection of my local website. I forgot how to go to
No, you got that URL, right? After you created the bucket, you got that URL, that public URL. No, so go back to the properties and static website. I had to find it because my font was all different after that thing. It's there, that's where that's a static website.
Oh, this one.
Yeah.
What if you get the 403 error?
I'm sorry?
I got the 403 error.
Oh, 403. Okay, 403 I think means forbidden permission or something like that. 403, yeah, okay. Alright, yeah. Okay, so just make the document public and the bucket also public. Yeah. Alright.
This is the one
Quest is it?
Yeah, so why, when I click on this, when I get on this,
Uh-huh.
why am I getting a password?
Oh, because you're trying to be the root here, right? You're trying to, you're saying.
So when I'm the EC2 user.
No, EC2 user only has pseudo rights. They're not the user. That's you is still treating my identity with something else.
Okay, now I'm still.
They do pseudo as to that.
Yeah, I make problem.
Yeah, okay. Oh, you're not? Yeah, but I bet you're the EC2 user. No, that's me. I'm EC2.
No, so I'm not getting that at all.
No, kill it. Exit. Control C.
So why is that, so go back to.
Because I'm not a support.
No, you know what I was, okay, I tell you what I was trying to do. So I was trying to finish
Mm-hmm.
to
You can,
modify the.
yeah,
authorize
that's fine.
these, so how do we do that?
Oh, okay, so, let's see how it is. Okay, so, this is me, right? So I use to I.
No, it's not
Sorry. Sorry, this is me. So, and then I correctly. Yeah, okay. So, what are we trying to do here?
I want to modify this, I gave.
Okay, yeah.
Here's that way. You ask on, you don't have any rights on your machine. Because, I'm running cars, right? So, I can do stuff. So what you have to do is do stuff as yourself. It's easy to use your pass rights to write it to my right. So you can have some of it on T-Pair.
Okay, copyright, insurance.
I'll show you. Oh, you have, okay, so all I need is
Yeah, and then it should ask you to save a file. Yeah, so you to use that file to log in.
So that's me. Now, because EC2 user cannot look into HANA, you need to know what you're looking for, because it can't look into those directories. But if you know what you want,
Sorry, I just want to hang out this.
or you have another option.
Yeah, database one. Database one is the pricing, the computing,
So see,
database, right?
Oh, so that's your main.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's one more sentence right
So now I can go to CD.
So part of the tutorials, like create WordPress, and have to create something from database, MySQL database.
So establish a domain name through,
What you do? It's not fucking all places, it's not a directory. Yeah, no, I think what happened was that copied that file to the thinking that it was a directory, but it actually copied this.
basically for web hosting, my own web hosting.
I think that's probably what happened. You haven't created it, so I think you need to, yeah, so I think what you need to. Yeah, no, the directory is there.
It's red name Dropbox for that.
That directory is okay. You have to do it. Because as far as minutes goes, user and all the directory needs, right? Because they only use passwords. So that will just take care of setting up the directory.
So now, everything.
Yeah. That's it, just use that as usual justice. I think that's all the request does, right? No, but you can't do that now because you already have filed all that stage. So yeah, delete it and you do the stuff in the site will get it open. Alright, hey, don't do the quest now, it's so fun, right? Because I'll get another question in hand. Well, hopefully, maybe I'll do it, I don't know, I'll work on this maybe next week. But I think, I'll try to make the next one more interesting. Was this fun? This current quest, was it fun? Yeah? Cool. Alright.
You said you talked about the different storage types.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, and there are some different storage types.
Yeah.
You talked about.
Yeah. I because they have this you can chop and dice it as finely as possible. So you can say, I'm only going to charge you for storage, but even then you're not satisfied and say, okay, even if the storage, even within storage, I have these different gradations, right? So I can say hot storage, or temporarily hot storage, or warm storage, or glacier storage. And essentially, these are just discrete points, but technically, I should be able to sell you an integral over a continuum.
So you mentioned that you were going to go through everything after you went over S3 buckets, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. After I went over the S3 buckets.
You're going to go through like what we've been doing the last 2 weeks. So like saying,
Do you want to? Because everybody's pretty solid on that, right? I mean, most of you are doing personal, unless you want to, right? I mean, because there's lots of other stuff. Yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. Okay, all right. Yeah, thank you. Did I say I was going to do that?
at the beginning of class, I think you mentioned it, but I don't know how to deal with it.
Okay, I'd like to do that. Yeah, so, and we have a lot of time.